I'm Franklin. This is the most mysterious story I've ever told. In April 1945, Königsberg was no longer a city of philosophers and amber traders. It was a tomb built of red brick and black smoke. The Baltic wind didn't bring freshness. It brought the scent of burning oil and the distant rhythmic roar of Soviet Stalin's organs that shook the very foundations of the earth. The sky was a permanent bruise, choked with ash from the firestorms. Erich Kohl stood in the ruins of the Paradeplatz, his boots sinking into a mixture of slush and debris. He wasn't a soldier by choice. Before the world caught fire, he was an associate professor of Baroque art at the University of Jena. Now he wore the field gray uniform of a Wehrmacht captain, though it hung loosely on his frame, worn down by years of retreat. While the SS fanatics were shouting about Endsieg, final victory, and forcing old men to dig trenches, Erich had a different mission. He was part of the Kunstschutz, the art protection unit. But in these final hours, protection meant hiding the loot before the city was leveled. Captain Kohl, a voice rasped from the shadows of a collapsed archway. Erich turned. It was General Linder, his superior, propped up against a heap of rubble. The general's left sleeve was empty, pinned to his chest. His face was the color of parchment. "General," Erich said, saluting half-heartedly. "The transport at the docks was sunk. The British bombers got the Wilhelm Gustloff. There is no way out by sea." The general coughed, a wet, rattling sound. "Forget the sea, Erich. The sea is for the dead. I have received the final directive from Berlin, but the SS, they want to burn it. They want to ensure that if the 1,000-year Reich falls, nothing beautiful survives." He reached into his pocket and handed Erich a small, heavy object. It was a brass key, intricately carved, and a single sheet of vellum paper with a list of coordinates. Not for a warehouse, but for a forgotten salt mine near the Samland coast. "The Amber Room," the general whispered, his eyes wide with a feverish light. "It was never in the castle's basement during the fire. We moved it, Erich. Piece by piece, panels, mosaics, the Florentine stones, it's all there, waiting in the dark." Erich felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Baltic wind. The Amber Room, the eighth wonder of the world. 6 tons of fossilized resin, carved into a golden sun that could illuminate a room even in the dead of night. "Why me, sir?" "Because you are the only one left who loves the art more than the ideology," Linder said, his voice failing. "The SS Obersturmbannführer, a man named Vogel, is looking for those coordinates. He believes that if he can't have the gold, the Russians shouldn't have the history. He'll burn the mine with everyone inside. Go, Erich, save the ghost." As Erich turned to leave, a black Mercedes-Benz 770 cruised slowly through the wreckage of the square. It didn't have the mud-splattered look of the frontline vehicles. It was clean, polished, and terrifying. Through the window, Erich saw a pair of silver-rimmed spectacles and a black collar with the double lightning bolts of the SS. Vogel. Erich didn't wait. He ducked into the labyrinth of the Altstadt's ruins. He knew these streets like the back of his hand, but the geography was changing by the minute as the Soviet artillery hammered the city into dust. He reached his motorcycle, a battered BMW R75 hidden behind a bakery. He checked his Luger, then the brass key in his pocket. He had to cross the city, pass through the inner ring of the fortress, and reach the coast before the final assault began. But as he kicked the engine to life, he heard a sound that made his blood run cold. It wasn't the artillery. It was the sound of a radio transmission being intercepted on his own headset. A calm, cold voice was speaking his name. "Captain Kohl, this is Vogel. You have something that belongs to the Führer. And in Königsberg, there are no hiding places left. Every clock in this city is counting down to 0. Where will you be when the light goes out? Erich slammed the throttle. The bike roared, kicking up a cloud of gray ash. He wasn't just running from the Red Army anymore. He was running from the shadows of his own uniform. By midnight, the concept of streets had ceased to exist in Königsberg. The city was a jagged landscape of broken teeth, skeletal walls jutting out of mounds of pulverized brick. Erich Kohl had abandoned his BMW near the Pregel River. The bridges were either blown or choked with burning trucks. He moved on foot through what used to be the Steindam district. The air here was colder, biting exposed skin with a mixture of frost and the acrid chemical sting of cordite. Overhead, chandeliers, Russian illumination flares, drifted slowly on parachutes, bathing the ruins in a flickering, sickly yellow light that made shadows dance like living things. Erich ducked into the shell of a bombed-out pharmacy. Under his boots, glass vials crunched, a sound that seemed deafening in the sudden lull of artillery. The smell was distinctive. Dried herbs, peppermint, and the copper stench of old blood. He checked his watch. 02:15. The coordinates General Linder gave him pointed to the coast, but he had to cross the no-man's land between the retreating Wehrmacht lines and the advancing 3rd Belarusian Front. He stopped. It wasn't a sound that alerted him. It was a smell. Cutting through the scent of burning timber and peppermint was something thick, pungent, and earthy. Makorka. Strong, cheap Soviet tobacco. Erich froze against a shelf still lined with dusty medicine bottles. He held his breath. From the darkness of the back room, a figure emerged. He didn't move like a conscript. He moved like a cat walking on a fence. He wore a snow camouflage cape, a mask halat, over a quilted Telegraika jacket, stained with soot and oil. On his head was a pilotka cap pulled low, and in his hands, resting with casual lethality, was a PPSH-41 submachine gun with a drum magazine. This was Captain Nikolai Volkov of the Trophy Brigade. Special units sent not to fight, but to hunt for what the Nazis were hiding. Volkov stopped 5 meters away. He didn't raise his weapon instantly. He took a drag from his hand-rolled cigarette, the embers glowing bright orange in the gloom. "You are going the wrong way, Fritz," Volkov said in German. His accent was rough, but his grammar was perfect. "The extraction ships are gone. The water is full of mines." Erich kept his hand near his holster, but didn't draw. "I am not looking for a ship." "No?" Volkov took another step. The flare outside drifted lower, illuminating his face. Scarred, unshaven, with eyes that looked like chips of gray ice. A Wehrmacht officer alone, without a platoon, carrying a map case but no rifle. "You are not infantry. You are Kunstschutz." Art protection? Erich's heart hammered against his ribs. This Russian knew too much. "I am just a historian," Erich said quietly. "And I am just a librarian." Volkov smirked, tapping the barrel of his PPSH against his palm. "My library is looking for a specific book, a very big, very yellow book, made of amber." The tension in the room was physical, like a wire pulled to the breaking point. Both men knew that the amber room was the ultimate prize. Stalin wanted it. The West wanted it. And Erich held the key. "It's gone, Captain," Erich lied, his voice steady. "Burned in the castle raid 2 nights ago." Volkov chuckled. It was a dry, rasping sound. He dropped the cigarette and crushed it with his boot. "Liar. If it was burned, Vogel wouldn't be tearing the city apart looking for you." "Oh yes, we hear his radio too. He is very loud, your SS friend." Volkov shifted his stance. Give me the map, historian. The Red Army will take better care of it than the fire. Erich's fingers brushed the cold brass of the key in his pocket. He calculated the distance. 5 meters. The PPSH fires 900 rounds per minute. He wouldn't stand a chance. But suddenly the ceiling above them groaned. Dust poured down. Wee thump! A mortar shell landed just outside the pharmacy, blowing out the remaining wall. The blast wave threw both men to the ground. Bricks rained down, burying the space in a cloud of choking red dust. Erich coughed, his ears ringing with a high-pitched whine. He scrambled to his feet, half-blinded. Through the haze, he saw Volkov trying to dislodge a heavy timber that had fallen across his legs. The Russian reached for his submachine gun, but it had skittered across the floor, out of reach. For a second, their eyes met through the dust. Erich had a clear shot. He could pull his Luger and finish the red shadow. But he didn't. He was a preserver, not a killer. And he knew that Volkov was just another hunter in the same game. "The mine is rigged, Russian," Erich shouted over the ringing in his ears. "If Vogel gets there first, nobody gets the amber." He turned and sprinted out through the hole in the wall, into the burning night. Behind him, he heard Volkov shouting, not in anger, but in frustration, struggling to free himself. "Run, historian, run! But the wolf is always faster!" Erich didn't look back. He scrambled over a mound of rubble, sliding down into a crater filled with freezing, muddy water. He was alive. But now he had 2 predators on his tail. The ruthless fire of the SS and the cold, calculating ice of the Trophy Brigade. And the dawn was coming. The Samland coast greeted Erich with a storm that felt like the end of the world. The Baltic Sea, black and churning, lashed against the jagged cliffs as if trying to reclaim the land from the war. The Anna mine was a derelict amber pit, its shafts reaching deep beneath the seabed like the fingers of a drowned giant. Erich ditched his bike in the dunes, the wind howling through the spokes. The entrance was a concrete bunker disguised as a weather station. The lock, encrusted with sea salt and rust, yielded to the general's brass key with a heavy, agonizing screech. Inside, the air was a thick cocktail of damp earth, mold, and pine. A strange, warm scent of ancient resin that shouldn't have existed in this frozen tomb. Erich descended the rusted spiral staircase. 100 meters. 200. The pressure made his ears pop. At the end of the main tunnel stood a pair of massive steel doors embossed with the Prussian eagle. His hands shook as he inserted the second key. The mechanism clicked. The doors groaned open with a sound like a dying whale's sigh. Erich struck a flare. A brilliant crimson flame hissed to life, illuminating the cavern. He froze. They hadn't just stored it. They had rebuilt it. In a massive underground chamber carved from solid salt rock stood the Amber Room, fully assembled. The panels that Frederick Efars had gifted to Peter the Great now glowed in the red light with a sinister, blood-gold brilliance. Millions of years of trapped sunlight. The mosaics, the mirrors, the Florentine stones, everything reflected the flare, creating the illusion that the walls were burning from within. It was the most beautiful and the most terrifying thing he had ever seen. A temple of art, hidden in the guts of hell. "Magnificent, isn't it, Captain?" A voice drifted not from behind him, but from the depths of the room itself. From the shadow of a massive amber panel stepped Vogel. He wasn't alone. 2 SS soldiers stood beside him, their MP-40s leveled at Erich's chest. Vogel himself wasn't holding a weapon. He held a canister of gasoline. He removed his silver-rimmed spectacles and wiped them with a cloth, looking at the walls with the eyes of a mad lover. General Linder was a sentimental fool. Vogel said calmly. He wanted to save this for humanity. But humanity is not worthy. If the Reich falls, the world should remain gray. No gold, no light. Vogel began to pour the gasoline over the priceless parquet floor. The smell of fuel choked out the scent of the pine. "Drop the key, Kohl," Vogel commanded, "and stand against the wall. You shall become part of the exhibition, the eternal guardian of the ash." Erich slowly raised his hands. He watched the gasoline slicking the amber baseboards. "You don't understand, Vogel," Erich said softly. "This isn't just a decoration. This is living stone. It remembers everything. It will remember the fire." Vogel smiled and pulled a lighter from his pocket. In that instant, the silence of the mine was shattered by a dry, singular click. Not a shot, but the sound of a bolt being racked. Above Vogel's head, in the darkness of a ventilation shaft, a shadow moved. The shadow in the ventilation shaft didn't stay a shadow for long. With a roar that drowned out the hissing of Erich's flare, Nikolai Volkov dropped from the darkness. He hit the salt floor like a lead weight, his PPSH submachine gun spitting fire before he even landed. The lead SS guard didn't even have time to scream. The burst caught him in the chest, stitching a red line across his tunic. But the second guard was faster. He dived behind an amber-encrusted pedestal and opened fire. Rat-tat-tat-tat. The room of gold became a hall of glass. Bullets shattered the mirrors of the amber room, sending shards of silver and 300-year-old resin flying through the air like lethal hailstones. Erich dived behind the main heavy oak table, his heart hammering against the floorboards. "Vogel, stop!" Erich screamed. But Vogel was beyond reason. He stood in the center of the room, his eyes reflecting the flickering fire of the flare. He ignored the bullets. He ignored the Russian. He looked only at the lighter in his hand. "A world in shadows!" Vogel shrieked. He flicked the steel wheel. The spark met the gasoline fumes. Whoosh! A wall of blue and orange flame raced across the floor, licking the base of the panels. The amber room didn't just burn. It reacted. The ancient fossilized sap began to bubble and hiss, releasing a thick black smoke that smelled of a prehistoric forest being vaporized. Volkov lunged through the smoke, tackling the second SS guard. They became a tangle of limbs and knives in the corner. "The roof!" Erich yelled, pointing upward. The heat was the final blow for the Anna mine. The salt rock ceiling, already strained by the weight of the Baltic Sea pressing down from above, began to moan. A sound like 1,000 violins snapping all at once echoed through the chamber. A tiny hairline fracture appeared above Vogel's head. Then another. Vogel didn't move. He stood with his arms outstretched, a dark priest at a golden altar, watching his masterpiece melt. "It's beautiful," he whispered. Then, the ocean decided the debate. Crack boom. The ceiling didn't just leak, it disintegrated. A massive column of black freezing seawater punched through the rock with the force of a falling skyscraper. It hit the center of the room, instantly crushing Vogel and the remaining guard under 100 tons of the Baltic. The fire was snuffed out in a heartbeat, replaced by a violent, swirling whirlpool of salt water, steam, and shattered amber. "Kohl, the stairs!" Volkov shouted. He had freed himself, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead. They scrambled for the rusted iron staircase as the water rose around their waists. The pressure was immense, the cold so sharp it felt like needles in their bones. They climbed as the chamber below them vanished into a dark, watery grave. They reached the surface just as the ground near the bunker began to subside, a massive sinkhole swallowing the entrance. They lay on the freezing sand, gasping for air. The morning sun was a pale, weak disk, struggling through the smoke of the dying city. Volkov sat up, spitting out salt water. He looked at Erich, then reached into his soggy tunic. He pulled out something small, a single, perfectly carved amber rose, broken from the central panel. He tossed it into Erich's lap. "The only thing left of the eighth wonder," Volkov rasped. "The rest is just salt and ghosts now." "What will you tell your command?" Erich asked, clutching the warm stone. Volkov looked at the horizon, where the Soviet tanks were already moving toward the city's heart. "I'll tell them the Nazis blew it up. A lie for a lie. Some things shouldn't be owned by any empire." Volkov stood up, adjusted his cap, and walked toward his lines without a backward glance. He was a shadow returning to a world of shadows. Erich Kohl survived the war. He ended up in South America, a quiet man who never spoke of the past. But they say that until the day he died, he kept a small amber rose in a velvet box. The amber room is still out there, according to the tabloids. They look for it in the mountains, in the lakes, in the basements of old castles. But I know better. The sea doesn't give back what it takes, especially not something made of ancient tears and golden lies. The amber ghost is exactly where it belongs, in the deep, cold dark, where no one can ever burn it again.